Welcome back for the second of our Bible stories. We hope you enjoyed yesterday's story. If you want to follow along today, have a look again in the book of Luke, find chapter 15 and follow along with us. Well, we hope you're sitting comfortably and you enjoy today's story from the Bible. I wonder what your family looks like. Maybe you've got a great family and it's really happy, or maybe you kind of think, oh, actually, not so much. Well, today we're going to be thinking about the time when Jesus, as he seemed to do all the time, was stood in front of a massive crowd of people. You know, they'd come from far and wide to listen to him tell stories. And today was just the same. He began by explaining to the group of people who were sat round him all upon the hillsides about a man. Now this man, he was incredibly wealthy. He owned a vast estate, maybe a bit like the one behind me. And he had 2 sons and he had many workers. And you know, Jesus was explaining this story to all kinds of different people. Some of the people were the poorest people you'd ever know. Some of the people were the most religious people that you might ever know. And there was rich people and all kinds of different people. And he was explaining that this man who owned a massive estate had the 2 sons. And every day these 2 sons, they would go out to work. And these 2 sons, they would help the father on the estate. But you know, one of the sons, the youngest son, he wasn't happy at all. Every day as he would go out to work, he was thinking, I'm here working for my father again. I want some freedom, I want some independence. Well, this son, you know, in his mind, he'd already left that estate. He'd already left his father. You know, the Bible explains that this son went to ask his father. He said to his father, Dad, I'd like my share of the inheritance today, please. You know, what this son was actually saying was, Dad, I wish you were dead. I wish you were gone so I could have my half of the estate that you own. I could have everything that's coming to me. And you know, this probably broke the father's heart. But he knew that his son's mind was already made up. And so he decided to sell the property he needed to sell and sell the animals that he needed to sell in order to give his son half of the inheritance. And so over a few days, that's exactly what happened. The father, probably with tears in his eyes, sold land and sold livestock and went to give it to his son. And a few days later, his son had packed his bags. He began to think, where could I go? What new adventures and excitement could I go to? Well, he walked off down the road and he found a long way away, he found a village where he lived, and he began to throw party after party and send invites out to lots of people. You know, he became very, very popular because he would just pay for party after party. Now, this didn't last very long because soon all his money ran out. And about that same time, a famine struck the land. Nobody could find food anywhere. Livestock were dying. The crops were failing. And well, this son began to get a bit desperate. He began to think, what on earth do I do now? And he got really, really hungry because, well, he'd wasted all his money in that wild living. And he went to a local farmer and said, look, please, can I just have a job? You know, just whatever the worst job is you've got, whatever it is, I'll take it. Now, this farmer owned a field and it had pigs in. And he said to this young man, you can come and feed my pigs. And that's what the young man did every day. He would take buckets of pig food and he'd go out and feed the pigs. Now, do you think this young man began to think, actually, what was my family like back home? There was always food on the table. There was always good work for me to do. He was there feeding the pigs and he was starving. He began to cry. But then, as he was in the pit of despair, he began to remember what his dad was doing. He remembered what his brother was doing, what the other workers were doing, and he thought, do you know, I could go right home right now. And that's what he did. He stood up and he thought, I've made such a terrible mistake. I'm going to go to my father and I'm going to say, Father, I'm sorry. I've sinned against God in heaven and I've sinned against you. I'm not asking you to take me back as a son because, well, I don't deserve to be a son. And so, there was the son walking back to the father. Now, what he didn't realise was that his father a long time. Every single day, his father was out looking for this lost son. He would look out over the hills, look down the road that led to his property, a bit like this long road here, and he would long for his son just to walk over the brow of the hill. And sure enough, one day, his father was out looking in the distance when he saw, "That is my son." He began to run towards his son. He knew from a distance that that was his son. And he ran and he embraced his son. Now just imagine how the son is feeling. He wished his father was dead. He's left, and "You don't need to take me back as a son, just take me back as a hired worker." Well, his father was having none of that. He called for his servant, said, "Quick, get one of the robes, get one of the finest robes, get one of our finest rings, get some fresh sandals for his feet, get some gold bracelets for his arms." And that's exactly what happened. And his father just put all this stuff on his son, and his son was overwhelmed. He says, "Look, son, I thought you were dead, but now I realize that you're alive." So there was the son. He was dressed in the finest robe with the ring on his finger. And do you know what all this said? It said that the father welcomed the son back with absolute love. Now Jesus told this story to explain to all the people that they were just like this youngest son. They left. They'd willfully disobeyed their Father in heaven. And yet, their Father in heaven, who is God himself, was longing that every single one of them would return to him. That's why Jesus was explaining this story. He wanted every one of the crowd listening to see, "Do you know what? I'm in a bit of a bad place. I'm away from God, and I just want to turn and come to you." That's what Jesus longed for all the people listening to do. And that's what we long for many people to do, is to turn like that son and to run back into their Father's arms, that is, into God's arms, because he promises to welcome people back. Now the father, he forgave that son. The son had cost that father a lot. He'd sold some of his property. He'd sold some of his animals. But do you know what? That father gladly paid to have his son back. And Jesus, the Bible explains to us that God in Jesus gladly pays to have us back. See, the Bible explains that Jesus paid for all our wrongdoing, all the times that we've willfully disobeyed him. Jesus paid for that so that we could just be back in our Father's arms. And not only did the Father forgive the Son, he then said to one of his servants, "Quick, kill the calf that we've been fattening. Go and get it. We're going to have a great big celebration." And that's a bit what it's like when somebody turns back to God. The Bible promises that one day we'll be sat at this great big feast, this great big celebration with God, if in this life we have put our trust in the Lord Jesus. So that's what this story is explaining, that we can turn from our way of living and we can turn to put our trust in Jesus.